Here's my final presentation for Intro to Corrections PowerPoint to go along with the essay I turned in. I really enjoyed taking this class, even though I've worked in the corrections setting for the past 4.5 years. I've definitely learned a lot of new things in this class that I can take into the workplace with me, and it was very interesting. So thank you for all the material that you gave us to look over and all the videos that you suggested that we watch for our weekly discussions.
For my final project, I thought it would be interesting to compare two countries that seem to have a lot of differences on the outside and look at how that related into the correctional system. So I chose to compare America's correctional system versus China. The difference in correctional ideology between the two countries was pretty interesting. In the United States, a lot of us still have that get tough on crime and the just desserts outlook on corrections, meaning that people get what they deserve kind of thing, and we want to see people be punished. Another thing that we have in the United States is a mandatory sentencing for crimes, which also goes along with the get tough on crime outlook. In China, from my research, it seems that they had a bigger focus on rehabilitation through education. It might not be the type of education that we would normally think of. I do feel like a lot of it was kind of political propaganda stuff, but nevertheless, they do require that, as well as hard labor. In a lot of their jails, they're required to do hard labor, and they feel that through that, somebody would be rehabilitated simply by doing that task. When it comes to the custody functions of the two correctional facilities, there are some differences worth pointing out. In the United States, we tend to have officers that specialize in certain areas within the jail or prison system, such as classification officers, transport, or even recreation officers. In China, however, the officers tend to be more generalized in their duties and don't really specialize in one area. Another difference that I found was that here we have a lot of civilian and plainclothes officers doing certain aspects in the prison, such as maybe counseling or rehabilitation or medical. And in China, they do not. Everybody that works in the prisons there are certified officers, and they are all in the same uniform. Nobody is plainclothes that works in the prison system there. Also here, we tend to have a variety of institutions that we can classify people in and house them in, and in China they do not. Some studies have shown that they are possibly moving towards mimicking the way that we classify, because we do have facilities for different custody levels and females and also juveniles. Although both correctional systems tend to lean towards education as treatment, the various types of education are extremely different. In the United States, one of the big treatment options used in jails and prisons is the RSAT, or the Residential Treatment Abuse Training, focused on drug addiction and getting to the root of the problem as to why the offenders are using. It's anywhere from a 6 to 12 month course, and it really gets in depth about the problem and try to change the mindset of the offender so when they're released, they don't go back to the same habits, even though they may be in the same type of environment. Another program that's widely used is a life skills program. It teaches things like parenting skills, how to apply for a job, computer skills, things that these people may have been lacking beforehand, and by giving them this knowledge while they're incarcerated, it gives them a chance to reintegrate into society in a positive way. In China, they do use education as well, but it's mostly for reform, and it has to do with policies and political education. Basically, the concept is they want the person that's in prison to know why they broke the law, why it's wrong, what the laws are, and how are they going to prevent themselves from breaking the law once released. Not so much as what caused them to be there in the first place. Another treatment that's used for rehabilitation purposes in China is hard labor. There's a big push on working hard, reform somebody, and make them into a different person. Here in the United States, there are options for labor while incarcerated, but some of them are voluntary, and they're definitely not the same conditions as you would see if you went over to China. The last topic I want to touch on is the offender rights for both correctional systems. Here in the United States, it's become normal for us to know that when someone gets locked up, they're going to have the right to receive mail from their loved ones and also send out mail. They also have the right to practice their religion as long as it does not interfere with the safety of the facility. And they also have the right to visitation. A lot of our jails and prisons here in the United States are located in a vicinity that's easy for people to come visit, making that connection be able to sustain while they are incarcerated. However, in China, a lot of their prisons are in rural areas, and it makes it very hard for loved ones to be able to come visit their family members that are in prison. This is especially hard for mothers who oftentimes cannot see their children because the distance is too long and it's too costly for them to come visit. Another difference in China is that medical treatment is definitely not a right. There's been lots of reports of people waiting several days to receive treatment. Where here in the United States, that would never stand. The facility's structure is also different. Here we're used to cleanliness, inmate workers cleaning every day, and a certain standard that's kept by being certified and looked at from outside entities. In China, it's not that way. Sometimes there's so much overcrowding that inmates are sleeping on a floor without even a bunk or a mat. And they definitely do not have the same standard when it comes to making sure the facility is clean.